to President Obama, speaking to Brian Williams. And this is an interesting exchange. I play this for two reasons. One, talking about informing Congress with the 30-day window that is outlined in the statute, and how Brian Williams does a follow-up on that but really doesn't, and President Obama's view on how this war is fought and what he thinks is right about the Bergdahl decision. Here is that part of that exchange. Thank you, mrc.org. Roll it.
The reason for not informing the 8 members of Congress who would customarily be informed by this?
Brian, I have to tell you the same thing that I've been saying for the last several days, which is we have a rule, a principle, that when somebody wears our country's uniform and they're in a war theater and they're captured, we're going to do everything we can to bring them home. And we saw an opportunity and we took it. And I make no apologies for it. It was a unanimous decision among my principals in my government, and a view that was shared by the members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this is something that I would do again, and I will continue to do wherever I have an opportunity if I have a member of our military who's in captivity. We're going to try to get him out.
The reason for the lack of congressional communication?
As I said before, the main concern was that we had to act fast in a delicate situation that required no publicity.
Cover of Time magazine this week, was it worth it?
The fact is that we are ending a war in Afghanistan. We have released, both under my administration and previous administrations, a large number of former Taliban fighters, some of whom returned to the battlefield. But by definition, you don't do prisoner exchanges with your friends. You do them with your enemies.
There's a number of things about that. Andrew C. McCarthy wrote a very good piece, actually highlighting a disagreement he had with Dr. Charles Krauthammer regarding the release of Bergdahl, but it does provide some insight in the sense that the war's not over. I hate to bring that up, but the war's not over, Mr. President. I wish you would gather that. That said, I want to move to what Jonathan Turley said about the Bergdahl release and not notifying the members of Congress. Roll it.
Did the White House violate federal law?
They did. I don't think that the White House is seriously arguing that they're not violating federal law. And to make matters worse, this is a long series of violations of federal law that the president's been accused of. I just testified twice in Congress about this record of the president in suspending or ignoring federal laws, and this is going to add to that pile. I don't think there's much debate that they're in violation of the law. What's fascinating, Carol, is that when this law went to the president, he used a signing statement, which, if you recall, as a senator, he opposed and ran against for president. But he actually used one in this circumstance and said, I'm going to sign this, but I actually think that that notice requirement is unconstitutional. And he's essentially arguing the very same principle of George Bush, that when it comes to Gitmo, he has almost absolute power, that it is his prerogative, his inherent authority to be able to make these decisions as he sees fit.
Now, what was really interesting about that, at least to me, in the sense of how this has unfolded, was the reasons they said, they gave for releasing him. And it had to do with Bergdahl's health. And then there was the concern, okay, it's his health. Is it really his health? And it wasn't quite clear on that, because remarking on how he came out, it appeared on video and a whole host of things. We're going to pursue that a little more, just a little more, to give you both sides here. Michael McCasey, former Attorney General, said, yeah, he, in essence, broke an unconstitutional law. And the signing statement actually has a little more to it, but we've seen a lot of things that President Obama's violated, once criticized, then senator, and then got in office and then did exactly what he opposed. I mean, you find that a lot in politicians, particularly, quite frankly, the names that come to mind are Reid and Obama, but I digress. Want you to know we're not letting that go. We're going to explore the legal aspects of it, but we're moving on here. I just wanted to make you aware that that's a pretty big deal. And the reasons behind it were questionable. Last week, as you'll see in the video, we talked about, did the president lie in the sense of, was it the health concern when they're viewing a video from 6 months previous, which is pointed out, the video will be up on the Facebook. Now I'm going to jump to cut number 2. John Kerry, this is a wonderful exchange about the release of these Taliban prisoners and the danger that they will present. It's actually cut number 3. And I love my team. Jeremy, Cedra, and Hannah, thank you. Here is John Kerry describing that. Roll it.
What I know today is what the President of the United States knows, that it would have been offensive and incomprehensible to consciously leave an American behind, no matter what, to leave an American behind in the hands of people who would torture him, cut off his head, do any number of things, and we would consciously choose to do that. That's the other side of this equation. I don't think anybody would think that is the appropriate thing to do. And you know, it seems to me we have an ability, we know we have the ability, to be able to deal with people who want to threaten Americans or threaten the United States. And if that's what they go back on their word to do, or if the Qataris don't enforce what they've done, we have any number of avenues available to us to be able to deal with that.
Now, one of the members of the Taliban, these detainees from Guantanamo, has already vowed to return to Afghanistan, return to the fight, and kill Americans. And the head of the Haqqani network who was holding him said, look, we have a pretty good idea here now. Let's kidnap more Americans. I mean, what do you say to the families of American soldiers that perhaps these guys could go back and kill Americans again?
Well, first of all, propaganda is propaganda, and they'll say whatever they want to stir the waters. So people should not be lured in by their propaganda, number one. Number two, we are ending our combat role. Our combat role in Afghanistan is over. We're going to have very few, people in that kind of position on occasion where, but I honestly, I just think that's a lot of baloney, to be truthful with you. And to whatever degree it may be true, they will wind up putting themselves at the mercy of those people who are very effective, who are there, who will deal with those matters.
Baloney. Now, let me ask you, as you're hearing that idea that it's baloney, what I really appreciated was the fact that the reporter followed up with John Kerry on this and asked him point blank about the release when he's selling the release. I thought that was a good thing. And in light of that, the idea that he's denying reality. That's the problem. We want to know what the problem is. That's the problem. Kerry is denying reality. And it's not the first time that he's done that. But there is a consequence to it. And he's done it with Iran. He's done it in this case. And the idea that we want the soldier brought home, that's okay, that's a desire. But what are the costs of that? I say costs because there are reports out that they did want that to exchange him for money, but we gave him prisoners. We set a premium on our soldiers and on those that are kidnapped that are American citizens by the likes of the Taliban. It's a huge problem. You may wonder, Kerry seems like a bright guy. No doubt he can be intellectually, I guess he can be intelligent. Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. Oh, welcome back. It's good. I saw you in those ads, by the way. They're kind of odd. The fact is, he doesn't have an ounce of common sense, and the reality is harsh. We'll get the soldier's view a little later. Coming up, Bruce Thornton, Crane Durham, Something But Truth, AFR Talk.